well, you could say for a while, like 20 years, or specifically on this book for, I don't know, the past few days. So, due to recent events, I am delving into more of the psychology type of research instead of the normal like news and politics and stuff. So, because this is something that gets to the heart of all of the issues, not just with us, but with the 1%, with all of it. So, um, that's why everybody does what they do, is because of, psychology, the woo woo stuff, which is something I've been hearing Jordan say, Yelbro, for like years now. And I knew it, but I didn't really understand it. And it was just kind of like, well, no, it's an economic thing, which economics comes back to psychology. So, it always comes back to that. Like that's how they get people to go along with the economics, is the psychology of it. But, I have my own personal things that I'm doing, and, I'm trying to share the information that I'm learning as I learn it. And that being said, I am not a medical professional. I am not a therapist. I am not a psychiatrist, psychologist. I've taken a few psychology classes in college and in high school, but other than that, no. I am not certified. I'm not a medical professional, and do not substitute anything that I say in any of these, in this series, for actual medical help. So, with that disclaimer being said, I've got, this is the book that we're taking from Psychology, Connections, and Perspectives. Now, this isn't necessarily the end all be all. This is the psychology book that I have, and it's just more of a starter. It's a way to just to get going, get the ball rolling. So, hold on, let me get the chat open real quick. I should mute that because I don't want to get the echo. You share it on Twitter. Hold on, give me a sec. If the internet cuts out, it's because I'm doing something on my computer, so that's why. Oh, fuck. I messed that up. Hold on. But basically, while I'm doing this, I'll go ahead and keep talking. I think that the way that we, like I said, not a medical professional. Hey, Peter, Josh, Michael, Max, awesome. We got people in here. That's helpful, but are you posting that information in a more lasting format? I can take copies of all my notes, and all my notes I have are all, I don't do anything online. Like, all my notes are on paper. But then I'll take this and I'll upload it so that way everybody can see the notes. And if you want, I can't legally, share, copies of the book, but it might be available online somewhere. You get what I'm saying? So just let me know and I might be able to find it for you. These chats aren't visible after they're over. No, this one's going to stay up. Now, the other one's because I got into more personal stuff. And I'll make those public again once everything's in the clear. But for now, I have to be careful with what I say about, as far as my personal stuff. So, that's just how I speak. But this one, I want to keep it strictly, with that stuff aside, if anybody's that interested in it. But this book is from 2012, but I thought it would be better off because I think that the way that we approach things within, psychiatry, psychology, whatever you want to call it, I think there's a better way of doing it, because instead of approaching things like it's, you go in with a problem that you need diagnosed. Instead of that, like, what we should all know how our brains work, how our minds work, why we do the things that we do, because this is the way that they have been controlling us for millennia. They use psychology, our own minds, against us, and that's why you see people doing things against their own interests. That's why you see people falling for propaganda, joining cults, whether it's political, religious, whatever. It's a huge, huge problem. And because we don't understand ourselves, other people, the people with power, are able to manipulate us in order to use us to their advantage. And not just with that, but this, like, we've got, do you want to be more efficient? Do you want to know, do you want to quit making the same mistakes? Do you want to, be a better parent? Do you want to be a better friend, a better partner? All that comes back to psychology. So that's why, I'm really focusing in on this. Well, why I'm sharing all this stuff with y'all, because I personally, I'm doing it just because I need it. But I'm trying to make it a little bit broader in my research, to where that way we can all kind of take something away from it. So, yeah. We might cut out a little bit here and there. But I have to say that just for legal purposes, because especially when it comes to stuff like this, you have to be very careful. So that's why I'm saying that. I mean, I've spent the better part of my life going to see doctors, therapists, being on medicine, and it's a broken system, just like every other system that we have. It's all completely broken. So I'm just taking what I know that works and what I know doesn't work, and trying to, this is just my theories, okay? So some of it's based in, verified research, but some of it is just, and I'll distinguish which one's which, but just for the legal purposes. But okay, so for chapter 1, so we've got several chapters here. I like how it's, the way that I'm going to break it down is body, mind, experience. So none of these are mutually exclusive. So your biological, situation is going to determine the filter that you have your experiences through. Your experience, the biological part of it, because that's going to be the filter that everything goes through, right? That's going to be the thing that determines the way you see your experiences, the way that your mind works. So that's, we're going to do that part first, and then we're going to go into the I think we're going to go into the, probably like milestones, like developmental milestones would be a good point to branch into experiences and mental, because depending on what age you are, that's how you can understand certain things. So something that happens to a 20-year-old, a 6-year-old wouldn't be able to understand. So even though it's something that eventually you'll be able to comprehend, it's like at that age, no, you don't have the capacity to do those things. So that we gotta even take that into account. It's like simple, but it's complex. Like it's not that hard, but it's just a lot of factors to take into account. Yeah, make sure you dot all your I's, cross your T's, carry your ones, all that. Yeah, YouTube's big brother. And you know how they are with the deleting channels and stuff because of medical misinformation. So that's why I'm just watching my ass. Plus, I don't want anybody to take me too seriously, because, I'm just sharing information. I'm not a professional. So this is just, my opinions, my ideas, mixed with what we have here. So we'll go ahead and get into chapter 1. I'll go ahead and give you. Do you want to outline first of the chapters, because it's like a brief intro to psychology. I'm not like focusing too much on the history of it or anything like that. Just some of the like the main points that we need to know. Um, and I'm glossing over the also chapter 2, the research, because I think there's importance to that too. Some of the parts of it. I mean, if you want to look up the scientific method, or if you don't, if you don't remember it from school, you can Google that. But there's certain things in there, and then chapter 3 is going to be the biology of behavior, and then let's see, chapter 4, sensing and perceiving our world, and then I think that's where it starts to branch off. Oh, chapter 5, human development, and that's where we're going to branch off, and it's going to lead into consciousness, memory, things like that. So, but this first part is going to be strictly like biological, and we're going to probably have to do like a couple different videos on that just to cover the basics. Because I mean, I went to, when I was at WVU, I had this friend, and she was going to school for psychology, and in order to get a job, like even as just a like a high school therapist or whatever, the psychologist they have there, it takes like 6 years, 4 to 6 years at least. I mean, because everybody, there's so many people with a 4-year degree that you have to get like a 6 year, what is that, master's, and then I think the next one after that's doctorate. But yeah, just to even get into the field, you have to get the bachelor's. So yeah, it's a lot of schooling, and this is, like I said, this is just one book intro. We could get so deep into this because there's so many different fields of psychology, which doesn't, it makes sense, but it doesn't, because it's a lot for one person to learn. Like, let's say, for instance, okay, we'll go ahead and get to chapter 1. I'm going to skip around in chapter 1 here. But there's different fields of psychology, which I don't really get, because I know that it's a lot for one person to go to school for, but at the same time, you need to know all this stuff, because if you see one type of psychologist, you don't have just one part. People are so multifaceted. You need to see every single one of these in order to get a complete picture of your mind. So but humanistic psychology, a theory of psychology that focuses on personal growth and meaning as a way of reaching one's highest potential. There's positive psychology. Scientific approach to studying and understanding and promoting healthy and positive psychological functioning. Gestalt, I'm saying that right, psychology, a theory of psychology that maintains that we perceive things as wholes rather than as compilations of parts, which is the problem that we have here. It's like that we want to just summarize everything as one whole thing, but there's so many different parts to why we do what we do and why we are the way that we are, that's why it's so complex. But I'm just going to give you just an idea of what types of biological psychology, the study of relationship between bodily systems and chemicals and how they influence our behaviors and thoughts. Like, okay, good example is back in the day, remember the lead that was in the gas and in the paint and everything else? You could have somebody that had the perfect environmental, family structure, had the perfect upbringing, the perfect, biology to make sure that they were functional and, happy and, psychologically sound. But because of that factor, the chemical factor of the lead being in everything, it made people lose their minds. It made people violent. It broke people's brains down. So, that's one of them. Cognitive psychology, the study of how we perceive, remember, think, speak, and solve problems, which I think that's probably one of the more common ones, because, with the cognitive behavioral therapy and stuff like that, there's a whole bunch of them. I'll just go through a couple more. We already went through clinical psychology. Did I? That's the diagnosis and treatment of mental, emotional, and behavioral disorders, and the promotion of psychological health. Now, that one is probably the most common one because that's what everybody does is they go in after there's a problem, after somebody else or they themselves have noticed that there's a problem, uh, then they'll go in. But, what people would consider, neurotypical people, which probably aren't because the way our world's set up, if you're fully functional, you're not functional. You're functioning within a dysfunctional world. You get what I'm saying? So even people that are, supposedly functional, they should probably go and see a doctor too. Just, which, I mean, we would all benefit from that. I mean, would we not? Like, just being able to understand ourselves better. Like, personality psychology, pretty self-explanatory. Social psychology, the study of how living among others influences thought, feeling, and behavior, which is super important because if we're just focusing on the individual, we're not focusing really on the environment that they're in. So on paper, if you look at somebody and say, okay, this is the biological, factors or emotional factors of this person, they could be completely different people in a different social setting. So, but we're going to build out. But first, we're going to hone in on the very specific, and then we'll expand and get into stuff like that. Which I've got. Hold on. I've got this one. I think this is the one that I used when I was in college. Society, the basics, and then also we've got this one, racial and ethnic groups, which is my I think it was like sociology that I took. So, and this is like how even if you've got two of the same people, identical everything, put them in different cultures, and it's going to be different results from that, right? So we're going to expand on that, but first we're going to start with we're going to go micro, then we'll go macro. Let's see, we only got a few more of these. Health psychology, the study of the role of psychological factors play in regards to health and illness. There's forensic psychology, sports psychology, educational psychology, industrial, organizational psychology. So there's a whole bunch. But it all goes with one specific field because there's so much more to it than that. And I think that's one of the things that we're getting wrong is that, first of all, we treat everything as a diagnosis and a medical treatment. We treat everybody as somebody to sell pills to, basically. And, not, I think we're, of course, we're overly medicated because there's a lot of times people should be feeling sad. When things go wrong in your life, you should feel sad. And Zoloft or Prozac isn't going to change your situation. You might be anxious if you're living with somebody that's abusive. Yeah, you're going to feel anxious. No pill is going to solve that. So, yeah, there's times that we should be feeling those things, processing them, but at the same time, being aware that not to get too far into it. Because once you do that, you're going to get lost in those emotions because that's why I have this written up here. This is where it all ties in. The mental, the experiences we have, and our biological things because, we have something that happens in our life. We'll have a negative thought. Okay? We'll allow that negative thoughts to override the logical or the positive ones. And because of that, it leads to more negative emotions. Negative emotions lead to more negative actions. If something happens and you're like, oh, I fucked everything up. I'm such a mistake. I fuck everything up. Well, those negative emotions are going to lead to negative actions because you believe that. Now you're going to act in that way. And it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that's going to keep happening. So negative actions, negative thoughts lead to negative emotions. Negative emotions lead to negative actions. Negative actions lead to negative outcomes. And just rinse and repeat. And that's why we see people stuck on these loops, myself included. We get stuck in these loops where we're like, why does this keep happening to me? Why does this keep happening? Because our thoughts control the rest of it. But also, when you get to the end of this, it's like, yeah, things happen to where it's going to lead to these. So it's like it's just a cycle, and we have to break that cycle. And the best way to do that is to be aware of our thoughts, be aware of, our feelings. Our feelings are valid, and we can't just suppress them. We can't just pretend like they don't exist. We have to feel our feelings, but at the same time, feel your feelings, accept it, be kind to yourself and say, you know what, that's okay. I understand that, and it sounds a little, crazy, but when you go approach it like that and you say, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, like I know that I feel bad, and that's okay that I feel bad, but I'm not going to let this be the control the way that I think, and try to, look at it from a different angle. Instead of like saying, oh, I fuck everything up, just say like, oh man, I made a mistake, but you know what? I'm going to learn from that, because that way I won't let that happen again. It was a learning experience. Or even look at it as, as far as, there's just different ways, just depending on what the situation is, So we could be upset about it, but the fact of the matter is we can't change what happened. It's already in the past. We cannot change those things. All we can do is learn from it, move on, and figure out a better way of doing things the next time. So, that's why the controlling your thoughts and ideas it's so important. But it's hard to do that when you have certain biological factors, right? There's certain times where our filter will override or change completely the thing that happened to us. Like, let's say you're at a family reunion. You're having a total blast. Everybody's having fun. You're at the park. Everybody, barbecue. People are, kids are playing, getting caught up with the, loved ones. But let's say that there's somebody their experience is going to be wildly different than everybody else is there. They're going to feel isolated. They're going to feel alone. It's going to be a reminder of what they've lost and what they can't participate in. So even things like, our senses, that some people have, I think it's like, what is it, synesthesia? It's like where you're, like, things feel different, or are tense. That's why a lot of people don't want to go out in public, because it's too much, like the autistic ADHD like aspect of it. It's just too much. It's like sensory overload, because you can't filter out everything. Most people, when there's a process that when you go out to, let's say, grocery shopping, the brain will filter out the things that aren't important. They'll filter out the noise of the fluorescent lights. They'll filter out the people that you're not talking to, that are distant away, or the music that's playing over the speakers. But for somebody that has like sensory, divergence, it's like, well, there's no filter. You're taking in everything, and it's so much different than somebody that can filter that out. And then why can't you go to the store? It's so easy. You just go to the grocery store and pick stuff up. But it's a totally different experience for them. So, and even, let's get into, hold on. So we have to keep that in mind. Like when we're like being reflective, it's like, okay, well, what are my biological factors? And I'll go a step even behind that, which is the reporting. Now that goes more into chapter 2, but I think it's important because, let me get back to this. So commonly used measures of psychological research. So if you're researching yourself, self-reporting can get you so far. If you can, it's better to have somebody that's trusted, that knows you very well, that can help you with that. Because a lot of times when it's just us and we're looking, our subconscious, our unconscious has ways of tricking us, has ways of protecting us that doesn't really protect us in the long run. You know, it's a short term kind of thing, but it will keep us from seeing certain aspects of ourselves. So that's where it comes into, you have to be able to be kind to yourself, because those hidden things are hidden because we have so much on our plate that the subliminal, the subconscious will say, oh, I see you got all that, you know, I'm just going to keep this a secret, so that way you don't have to worry about it. You know, I'm gonna make up a good story for you to believe, so that way you don't have to stress out, that kind of thing. Or completely hide memories from us altogether. I mean, there's times where decades later people will remember something that happened to them that they couldn't remember before. I mean, like, you know, assaults and things like that. So yeah, it's, you know, if you have somebody that you know that you can trust, or somebody that can help you out with that, you know, and that's why it's good to see a therapist. It's like there's somebody that to bounce back off of. Because yeah, even then, like, we have to take that into account when we're doing all this stuff, because we create our narratives. Now there's what happened, then there's our filter of things, our perception of things, there's other people's perception of things, and then, you know, and we have to take their perceptions into account too, because, you know, maybe they had something that happened earlier, or, you know, a traumatic experience where, you know, they're putting their perspective, applying that onto us. So it gets really tricky, but, you know, I think it comes down to kind of find the middle ground in between the two. So if we're doing that, so we got to start before you're born. You know, you got to look at, who are your parents? What are the biological factors? What did they pass down to you? What were the economic factors? What were the what was the environment that the parents were in? Were they, you know, in a war that, you know, that they had some kind of poisoning to where it's, you know, I know that happened with my stepdad, that, you know, he had some things because he was in so many different wars that, you know, it kind of, you know, while you were incubating, things like that. So these are all things we gotta, like, just start there, go through that. You know, what happened after? You know, what were the first few years like? And that's super important. I don't know necessarily about the infant stage, because, I mean, yes, of course it's important, but I think at that point it's like, you know, you can remember some things but not others. So I'm not really sure about the statistics on that, but I know after, you know, I'd say about 2 years, 2 to 3 years, those years are especially the first 6 years. I'll include infancy in that too. Super critical, because I think during the infancy, that's when you can see kids, and you can see the still face experiment, right? Where it's this, you know, this child that doesn't have any kind of verbal, you know, abilities. And then the mom's just sitting there, and the baby's trying to get a reaction out of this mom, and the mom's just like this. And then you can see the baby become panicked. It starts crying because it doesn't know what to do, because it's looking towards that, you know, figure to teach those things, because it doesn't know how to react. It doesn't have words at that point. It's looking at the parent saying, what's this? Is this a thing? Is this good? Is this happy? Is this funny? Like, you know, and they'll do things, and then when you don't give them that response, it drives them to you know, drive them crazy, for lack of a better word, because they don't know what to do, and they're looking for that reaction. And if they don't learn it with that reaction, like, when I do this, this is what happens, that is a long-term effect. That's a very long-term effect, which I'm concerned about, you know, with the masks and stuff, because you have all these kids now that were born during the pandemic. Everybody's, you know, masked up, so when they're doing something, and the mom's like, I'm so happy, good job, and it's like, where's the reaction? You can't see it. How are they going to judge, you know, the reaction from that? So, you know, like, it's, you know, like, that's another factor of things that are happening. You know, the injections and the masks and What is happening with my thing up there? Anyway, so yeah, so we have to be as honest as we can with ourselves. Be kind, be loving, give your subconscious a safe place to be honest. Because if you have to create that pathway, or else you're not going to know about. And it's not just bad stuff that's trapped in there, it's good stuff too, because so many times people will bury good things about themselves in there so that way they can survive. You know, if you grew up in a household where your parents made fun of you, oh, you just think you're so smart, don't you? You know, you look at you, you smarty pants, or your older sibling would beat you up because, you know, you made better grades or something. It's like you're going to bury that part of you in yourself. Or if kindness was considered a weakness in your household, you're going to bury the kind parts of yourself in there. So, you know, it's hard to do, and even if it is a positive emotion, it still brings up a lot of negative ones to resurface, but it's worth it, because if we don't dig down in there and understand that, there's other people out there that are more than willing, more than capable of exploiting that. That's how advertisements work. You know, when you have a soap commercial or makeup commercial or something like that that says, if you want to get, you know, if you want to be beautiful, if you want to be this, if you want to be that, if you want to have somebody that loves you, you're going to have to buy our product. If you want to, the weight loss industry, all these different industries that prey on our insecurities, right? So, you know, it's a way of protecting that. If not, you've got politicians, corporations, more than willing to exploit it. You know, or just even people out there that want to be, you know, too. And that's how you get abusive relationships. So we got to be able to have a safe place for our subconscious to tell us the truth and tell us and be honest and not, because when you do that, it's not filtering as much out. You know, I'm sure there's still some degree of filtering that happens, but you know, we gotta be able to do that kind of thing. Let's go ahead and see the chat. I'm gonna stop real quick, see the chat, so that way we can see if there's any questions or anything. With disease that can't be named, the need for therapists and counselors will increase as the human race is placed under. Oh yeah, I mean we're all in need. Yeah, situational depression, anxiety. Hey Schultzy. Thank you. My undergraduate thesis examined the psychological viewpoints of the individual in the context of sociological viewpoint. Interesting. The two can't really be separate. Yeah. So we got to understand ourselves on like the molecular level and then expand on that and see how. See, what you're doing is like different chemical reactions. If you take, you know, so many parts of hydrogen, so many parts of oxygen, you're going to get water. But if you do that in a different, you know, situation, or if you add another element to it, you're going to get something completely different. Or, you know, factor in the families, you know, that's another element that you're adding to the formula. So this is a formula, and then every single component of this is just another element that you're adding to it, to where it's like, and if you don't take into account all the different components to it, it's like you're gonna come out with a completely different compound than you would, you know, otherwise. So yeah, that's definitely important. Same reason why eyewitness testimony is thrown out. Yeah. And yeah, memories, and oh my gosh, that's a whole thing that we could get into, that we are going to get into eventually. It's like every time you revisit it, it's going to be a little bit different, which concerns me, because it's like there's, you know, because as much as, you know, we all have things that we dwell on, there's things from our past that are, you know, always in the forefront of our minds. It's like, okay, well, every time I think about that, I'm changing it a little bit. The person I am now is filtering it differently than the person that it happened to, because we're all different people. We're not the same person we were when we were 3 or when we were 10 or 15. You know, that's why I like the whole Doctor Who thing. It's like, well, that's kind of like how we are. We might have the same memories, but we're filtering it through like a different person. And, you know, that's why you have so many different types, you know, you change. And, you know, that in itself comes in with, you know, there's a mourning for the person. When something happens and you change, you have to mourn for the person that you used to be. Because it's like, you know that you're not that person anymore. You know that part of your life is over. That things are different now. You know, like when you have especially with a big traumatic event or death of somebody, something like that. It's like you know that you're just different now. Or you know, graduate even certain milestones, graduating high school. You know that the person that you were before that is going to be totally different than the person afterwards. You're just on a different path now. So, you know, it is good to have those feelings and just be like, you know what? But that's okay because it's like you're taking that person and the goal is to add to it. It's like I'm you know, expanding, I'm enhancing instead of, but depending on what it is that happens, it's like, yeah, you know, sometimes it takes away from you if it's something like something bad that happens. I think I lost where I was at. So these are all just different things. And I'm sorry if I'm rambling. This is my first time doing this. Next time I was studying on how to do lesson plans. Not that I'm like some kind of teacher or anything, but I just wanted to be able to put this together coherently to where, you know, people could understand it and I'm not just rambling. But sociopaths are often the result of a lack of contact head traumas. So you got that factor where there's a lack of nurturing, lack of love or attention in the home, abuse, and then you got somebody like that you know has some kind of head trauma, and the person that comes out of that is you know, might like torturing animals or something, you know, maybe not, but you know, that seems to be like the underlying thing. But that goes back more to the forensic psychology, which was something I wanted to do when I was a kid. That was my thing. I wanted to be a forensic psychologist because I wanted to be able to understand the mind of a, you know, serial killer, because it just seems like, you know, you've got all these people that are just going around, you know, every day just, you know, living their lives, and then you've got these like this group of people that just operate completely different. And even like within the 1%, it's like they're still they're the wealthy people. It's like I think maybe that's why we're not solving the problem. I think that's why we keep seeing this keep popping up everywhere. And this is a very unpopular opinion, but they're broken too, and I think that they need healing too. You know, you don't get to be a Kissinger or a Hillary Clinton without being fundamentally broken in ways. And if there's a way that we can be compassionate and heal that, I think that we should, because even though it may not feel good, it may not be the vengeful, you know, way that people want to, you know, it's not the guillotines, but the guillotines are not, you know, we've tried the guillotines before, you know, France tried the guillotine. Did that help? We still have the problem. So, you know, maybe we should try something radically different. Maybe we should infect these groups of people with empathy and love and, you know, things that, you know, we have that there's like a lack of that in those communities. But, you know, I'd have to learn more about it, but it's usually a pretty hush-hush quiet type of group. You know, it's not like they're out there talking about these things. They're just out there, you know, selling their products or whatever. Only 1/3 of people are genetically vulnerable to become pathological. Russian bear. Oh, $sign on everything, America. Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like we completely discount anything that doesn't have a price tag on it. If we can't make money off of it, sell it, buy it, whatever, it's not important. And they don't want us looking inward, because if we look inward, we'll find solutions, we'll find peace, we'll find, you know, healing. They want us to buy their pills or their, products in order to fill that. They create a void in us that we have to seek an external solution for. So whatever it is, it's, that we have to seek that external solution, because we can't look in. Of course, we're not able to look inside and see, no, that's free. That's going to actually, that's going to be healing. And healthy, fully actualized human beings aren't susceptible to advertisements and propaganda. So, they got to keep us broken and, miserable. Let's see. We evolved to need daily social interaction and contact and interaction. Screens are not the same. Yeah, and I'm suffering with that right now. I wanted to go out tonight. I wanted to, go hang out with my friends and stuff, but until I get my car fixed, I'm not really that mobile. So, but I got good news on that. I'm getting it fixed. Hopefully I can get it fixed tomorrow. Because I just, as much as I love talking to y'all, and it's so helpful, and I appreciate everybody here, it's like, I've been in this house, man. Been in this house for a while. And I know that that's not healthy. The introvert in me is like, yeah, let's stay at home. Let's, wear sweatpants every day, and, just whatever. But I know mentally I need to go out and be around people. And plus, I want to be around people. But it'll get there. So, as much as I want to do that, it's like, in the meantime, I'll work on this, bide my time, get through it, and I've got, all y'all wonderful people that are helping me get through this. Because, it's been, y'all know, I ain't been the soundest of, people dealing with all this shit. And it's because I've been able to talk to all y'all that I've been able to process and get at least, this far. So, yeah, we all change with age. Yeah, it's just a natural process. But still, and then we sit there, and so many times we'll look back, and I don't know why the opinion of our childhood selves are so important. The things that you wanted to do, or the person you thought you were going to be, is something that can be very haunting to people. But you know what? Our childhood selves didn't know shit. Bless their hearts, but they didn't know how things really worked. They didn't know what was going to happen to us. They didn't know any of these things. So to sit there and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is where I ended up. It's just acceptance. You just got to accept it, and, you don't have to be okay with it. You don't have to be happy with it, but just have that peace of mind of it's forgiveness. You just got to be able to forgive yourself. And it's not forgetting. It's not throwing out all the bad things that has happened to you or that you've done. But guilt and shame are two of the most negative, useless emotions. Those are two emotions that will hold you back from anything and it's only going to, it's a cycle that will create more guilt and shame. Because of that guilt and shame, you're going to do things out of that's going to create more of that. And the more that happens, it's like, it's feeding itself. So it's like, you can understand it and give that kind of healing to yourself, to where it's like, I get it. Mistakes were made, things happened, but that doesn't have to be that case every single time. And you only knew, and it's so easy to look back in hindsight, right? When you have all the information now, and you can see when you're outside of the maze, of course you can see the way to get out of the maze. But when you're in that maze at that time, when you don't have the information you have now, you were just making the best decisions that you could with the information you had. So, it's just forgiveness. It's forgiveness. Not forgetting, not excusing it, just forgiveness. It's just a different way of looking at things, to where we can move forward, I guess. And like I said, I know all this stuff on paper. It's so much harder to do it actually in person. Because there's been so many times where I know things. I'll know things logically. I'll know facts. But the way you feel will won't match up with that. So you could tell yourself all day long certain things, but it's going to take time for your emotions to catch up to that. It's like when you go on it, like if you want to lose weight, you go on a diet. Well, just because you decide to lose weight, you go on a diet, you don't get instantly healthy. It takes time for that reality to catch up to the thing that you're doing. So it's like, don't give up, don't lose hope, because I've done that before. It's like, I know it now, so why don't I feel it? I know it, why don't I feel it? you know but it's like, it takes time because you've created all these pathways in your head, and over years of just mulling over this and wearing down those pathways, you're in a groove. It's going to take time to get out of that. And that's the thing, I'm not patient with myself. I'll be patient with other people, not patient with myself. I'm like, I know it, okay, come on, next thing, next thing, next thing. Like I'm constantly trying to rush myself through stuff, and it's like, you can't rush through, especially something like this. There's a right way of doing things, and there's a fast way of doing things. So you could either do it fast and do it wrong, or you could do it slowly and actually get to where you're trying to get to. And it's not like there's never like a and that's the thing that I fall into this trap too of, there's not like a thing of, this is the